as a child, the impression given to us is that the intelligent one studied science, and those ones who are not very intelligent study arts and humanities. This morning, I'm here to actually address these misconceptions and give you some thoughts which will actually give us an understanding that that idea is a very wrong one. And before the emergence of discipline, I would love us to ask ourselves what was knowledge like before discipline emerged. Before the emergence of discipline, the only form of knowledge which we had was called philosophy. And over 2,000 years ago, when we had philosophy, the only thing philosophy addresses is issues that relate to humanity without the compartments of science, arts. So far as humanity, so far as health, you find it. Anything about humanity and human being existence, that is the form of knowledge that was existing at that time. Gradually, over time, we began to have disciplines emerging, and philosophy started division into the natural philosophy and the moral philosophy. The natural philosophy later emerged into the natural sciences, while the moral philosophy became what we have today as the arts and the humanities. This is to tell you for the fact that solving human problem is impossible without reassembling the disciplines and the compartments which we have created for ourselves. For instance, have you asked yourself, what informed the color of hospital wards and surgery room? There is color philosophy and color psychology, how it affects the healing of the patients. So apart from the injection, HARTS gives the medical professional the information that if the word is painted in a particular color, there is a sense of calmness, there is a sense of positivity that comes to the patient in that ward. This tells us that the man giving the injection, who has gone for medical school for 7 years, is as important as the guy doing the painting, knowing the right color to combine, and to tell you much more. Now, for me to address this misconception properly, I would like to talk about nature and nurture. For instance, we human beings, we have a nature with which we process information. Either we are arts or we are science. Whichever way we are presenting information, there is a nature of processing information. And cognitive science and neuroscience has showed us how we process information. Actually, within our cognitive domain, there is a section or a compartment, if I will use that word, of our brain that is responsible for processing information related to arts. And there's another section within our brain that is processing information that are related to the sciences. But irrespective of the information that we are processing, it is very important we understand that the nature of the information we are processing determines the part of the brain that will be very active at the moment. For instance, if you are processing art-related information, you will be doing so much of divergent thinking, such that there is a multiple perspective to the ways we are going. For example, there is no right answer to an essay in an English class because the teacher wants you to write from the multiple perspective. But if it is a quadratic equation, you know that there's just one answer. And that's why we call it the convergent thinking. But neuroscience and neuroeducation has shown us that irrespective of the nature of the problem we are solving, both the divergent part of our brain and the convergent part of our brain, they are working together to solve the problem at any time. This tells us that whenever we are solving problem, the artistic side of our brain and the scientific side of our brain processing, information processing, are active. So this tells us that it is very important that we know that there is nobody that is permanently tilted to the divergent thinking or the convergent thinking. The guy that I described painting the wall of the hospital, while he's painting, is using both the convergent and the divergent because it will measure. It will say, okay, bring from here to here and all of that. It will be converging the two informations together for him to get the result he wants. The same thing with the doctor that is administering drugs and the nurses. Now, neuroscience further shows us that it is very important to understand that either of the thinkers are succeeding both in science and in the arts, such that they did a survey to understand the predominant way of thinking of people in arts and sciences, and it was found out that those of the arts, there were many of them who are even dominantly convergent, and they are still in the arts. There were many people who were dominantly divergent, and they were succeeding even in the sciences. So it has been shown that irrespective of the type of thinking, you can succeed either in the arts or in the sciences. And again, a research was carried out in the University of Radisbot, and the research showed that students who are in science classes, STEM, and those ones who are in arts, they want to check if there is a difference in their level of creativity, which is actually the major gap among those people who are studying sciences and those ones who are studying arts. And they decided to carry out this research using 3 instruments of standardized instruments for measuring the level of creativity. The result was amazing because the results showed consistently that the STEM students, they were lagging behind slightly, although significantly. The difference between the arts students and the science students was slight. Of the 3 instruments, they decided to use 3 instruments, standard instruments to measure creativity. So this made this researcher to go further to ask what was responsible for 3 standardized instruments to produce the same result, revealing that students who have preferences for STEM education and sciences, they were only slightly behind their arts counterparts in terms of creativity. The result of the second stage of research showed that those students who are in STEM, the reason they lagged behind slightly was because of their level of openness and creativity self-efficacy and not their cognition. And this brings me to nurture. Nurture has to do with what the society, our physical and social environment has fed us with over time. They will tell you that, oh, physics is difficult for the girls. Literature is better for the males. And all of those things, they are nurture. And gradually, this issue of nurture, they are the real thing that is causing this dichotomy in the sciences and in the arts education. This morning, I would like to show you and present to you some people who have succeeded in the arts and also in the sciences. I will start with Alexander von Humboldt. He is a German scientist who has done a lot in the area of mathematics. He is also a geographer. He is a naturalist, an explorer, a philosopher. He was also an anthropologist. He did a bit of archaeology. So this shows us that if the notion that preferring science is an indication of better intelligence, this man couldn't have succeeded, because Alexander von Humboldt succeeded both ways. So this tells you that the most important thing is succeeding is what you are open to. Alexander is open to humanities, is open to sciences. The next person I would love to talk about is Albert Einstein, the one who worked on relativity and several other things in sciences. Many of us did not know that this great scientist and theoretical physicist was a great pianist and a violinist. At a point in his career, people watch him play in some concerts. And he was also succeeding in the sciences. So this comes to tell us today that either way, what is important is what you are open to and what are your preferences. Let me show you another person who is Aluko. This is Timothy Folorunsho Aluko. He was a minister in the southwestern Nigeria, Minister of Public Works in the 60s. A.T. Aluko studied civil engineering and town planning in the University of London till the PhD level, but he was an award-winning novelist. One of the greatest novels of all times is The Man and the Woman. The Man, 1959. The Man and the Machete, that is 1961. They are standard novels that several examination bodies adapted for their literature. And this man has a PhD in civil engineering and town planning. Another person I would love to talk about is the former governor of Oyo State in 1983, Chief Dr. Victor Oluloyo. He had a PhD in mathematics, and his area is numerical analysis of equivalent value. Dr. Oluloyo, I could say, is one of the most cerebral governors that this state has ever produced. And I will tell you that in St. Andrews, Scotland, St. Andrews University in Scotland, his record of PhD in 1961 in numerical physics he analyzed the numerical analysis of some storm. And this record is still standing in St. Andrews University. But I would love to tell you that I have been following his columns in Nigerian dailies over time. And the writing of Chief Dr. Oluloyo will show you that he's open to art. Now, what is the motivation of all these people which I have mentioned all day? Their motivation is that they want humanity to be better. So, if you are in this room and you're listening to me, your preference is not a disadvantage, but the level of your openness can be an advantage. Do you want to pursue that heart with the level of excellence that requires, or you want to say, I'm laid back? They said art students cannot do well. And based on this, we can conclude that our preference does not determine the level of our intelligence. Rather, our openness will determine how far we can go. And because of this, I'll be proposing the following recommendation. Number one, our education system in Nigeria makes learners to close their mind to a particular field very early. The system in education before university in America allows you to switch very fast. And that was what helped Valba, because the way their high school curriculum is structured, you will make your choices towards 2 years or a year to the end. You can make your choices. It's a GP system. There is no WAEC. So you could be taking things here and there, but even from GS1, a child knows that in SS1 is going to science class. So as a result of that, he has shut his mind. He has made up his mind. I was thinking that if there is a system that we will run and the curriculum will be structured in the manner that it is in SS2 that you will make your final judgment. You will have been prepared that whichever way you go, you will succeed, so that you will be very vast. And I also recommend to teachers to make no derogatory comments to the students in arts. For example, a maths teacher walks to a classroom, you guys cannot solve this. Your colleagues in science class have solved it since the morning. All those derogatory comments, they are terrible. They are devastating to the learner. And finally, I will say that as a learner in this room, I want you to be open and see that excellence is yours. Thank you very much, and God bless you.